Lyrically, Will, what is the approach to Reeking Aura? It does seem like there's a specific kind of feeling to all the songs that you're trying to get across.
Well, I mean, in terms of the theme of the album and making a kind of a concept, I wouldn't say it's based on a book, but it's inspired by a book that I admire a lot, Pilgrim at Tinker Creek by Annie Dillard. It's a winner of a Pulitzer Prize. I'm looking at it right now. It's a book I read years and years ago, and it's, you know, it just has like really graphic descriptions of things in a natural setting and in a more rural setting and wildlife setting. And I wanted to get across, I think, you know, it was inspired because it was all written during the pandemic, like Rick said. So I was, I think, trying to express kind of like a sense of isolation that most people could probably relate to, you know, during that time period. And, you know, also like I kind of have an interest going back, you know, years and years. And, you know, my whole family really into, you know, horticulture and growing our own vegetables and trying to cultivate the land to our own extent where we can. And I still always, you know, grow vegetables and do a lot of projects like that during the summer. And right now, you know, we do that. And, you know, we go fishing here on Long Island a lot, too, which I just did today. So I just tried to get that kind of like very earthy, homegrown experience into the lyrics and also maybe inspired by that book, but throw my own morbid death metal take on it and use that to kind of express myself and kind of, you know, maybe get out that, you know, those feelings that I had, you know. So it was, you know, it's a great release, obviously, you know, as everyone knows with music. So that's pretty much what it was. Just a little bit of the pandemic and that isolation coming out through things that inspired me. Yeah,
there definitely does seem to be very strong nature theme connecting all the songs, like not nature in like a I don't know, I'm trying to think of a band that has a lot of nature themes, like not nature in like a hippie way, but like, you know, kind of the dark malignant aspects of nature and, you know, what happens when a body rots out in the wilderness and things like that.
There's a lot of great black metal bands that touch on, you know, nature and, you know, more like wild settings, things like that. So sure. Yeah.
The album that we're speaking about is Blood and Bone Meal, and it will be released on July 29th of 2022 through Profound Lore Records. You guys had, as you mentioned, released a 3-song EP, which you recorded at the very beginning of the pandemic, and you worked on this throughout the bulk of the pandemic. With the change in circumstances and the fact that you guys couldn't get into the studio to work together, did you find yourselves, or I guess specifically the way you were collaborating with Ryan, changing at all and changing the way that the song sounded?
I would say no. I would say it was a natural evolution because even in the way we title the songs, when Ryan sends them out, it's Death Metal 1, Death Metal 2, Death Metal 3, Death Metal 4, so we're up to Death Metal 9. I think we're up to 9, and he has 10, 11, and 12, I think. And you know, so that's how we handle that. And nothing really changed in between the EP and the album as far as the writing process or the sound. I think it just evolved in a more natural way. Because of the situation.
Yeah.
You know, it has a little sound of isolation to it, when you listen to it. And maybe that's just me looking a little too much into it, but it sounds that way, but I don't know. Could be.
And, you know, there was definitely a natural progression to it because before everything happened, Ryan was laying out the bass of these songs and it was pretty much just a guitarist, all the strings playing together to the drum machine. So we really locked in and we got used to playing to demo tracks. So with this band, we knew it was kind of going to be like a homework, to like do your homework on your own time. And when you're showing up, we're jamming these songs. And as things became tighter and tighter and people became busier and busier, that fact was even more important, right? So there's definitely that sound of isolation building up. And we even had like an intermediary recording where that's even more noticeable. But I think towards the end, it's all kind of culminated with everybody bringing their skill sets and, you know, just really being professional about it and coming out with a nice piece of art.
I would just add to what these guys said that I agree with Rick. Like, there wasn't a big change with the pandemic because this band was always the type of band where we were spread out between New Jersey and Pennsylvania, even, and Long Island and parts of New York City and
all over the
Yeah, and even before the pandemic, it was one of those that, like Terrell said, do your homework. We all have the song. Write your parts, get ready to do it, and then we'll meet up once a month here, twice a month there when we can. And a lot of the guys in the band are either starting young families, or they're more career minded at this point in their life. So when the pandemic hit, it made things harder, obviously, to meet up where we could, but we were already on this trajectory to do everything through email and text messaging and sending files back and forth and that sort of thing. So, it didn't change all that much for us. We were able to adapt to it quickly.
Yeah, and I think we're content with that too. Like, if that's the way it is moving forward, I'm cool with that. Like, if Ryan wants to send a bunch of songs, I got some songs on deck. You know what I mean? So we'll send songs. Terrell, I'm sure, is gonna rip and rock. So email is our friend, and Dropbox is our friend in 2022. That's how we handle things.
And Will, as someone who wasn't playing an instrument on the album, were you noticing the way that these songs were coming together and maybe taking shape, being built up from these skeletons that Ryan sent?
Well, I mean, I didn't hear necessarily what Rick and Terrell and Tom were going to add, or if the drums were going to be a slightly different pattern, or maybe a faster paced beat here as opposed to what was on the original drum demo when I was writing it. So I just would write everything to the drum demo as best I could. And when we could meet up in rehearsal rooms, that's when I might take my notes and change things around a little bit. And could we run that song again, guys? I got to try this out, that sort of thing. So again, it was pretty much, the same type of thing we did before the pandemic and through the writing of the album. It was along the way when we finally meet up, or like I said, when we're tracking in the studio, the vocals go last. So there's times even when we were recording with Colin where I'd be like, oh, okay, but now I can hear that more clearly, what he adds to that part. Maybe I'll change the vocals around here and there. So it's like, I have just as Ryan provides like the basic engine of the song, I kind of have a basic idea of what the lyrics all are and the vocal patterns, and we got to adapt as we go along sometimes,
So the lead time from between the EP to writing the album was almost immediate, but even so, did you notice a progression between the songs? Did you notice the style of the band changing slightly or evolving slightly?
I think it all came together and manifested itself when we got Sam. And then we heard taking nothing away from Keith Harris from Afterbirth, who played on our first EP. He was an incredible drummer. And taking nothing away from Keith, but Sam, I think his style is perhaps better suited for this band. And once we heard Sam with the band, we realized then that that's kind of the final kind of missing piece to the puzzle, I thought.
Final nail in the coffin.
Yeah, that's right. My coffin. If I keep talking. Yeah.
Keith.
The final grub in the mouth.
Yeah. Well, no, I'm still in Afterbirth with Keith. I see him all the time, man. I love that guy. He's one of my favorite drummers and favorite people. But like I said, he's also got his family and his career, and with the commute angle of the band, we had to get a new drummer at one point, and he just had to commit down to Afterbirth and his other band, Lunacide, which is based off Long Island, so it's easier for him. So when Sam joined, I think Sam got it. I think whereas if you listen to the demo, the first EP with Keith on drums, he nailed it, but it's it's Keith's style, whereas Sam's style is a little bit more death doom. Sam nails those slow parts just a little bit slower, and he kind of lays into the doom aspect a little bit more as a drummer, which I think really locked in, like, the final nail in the coffin, like I said, so I would just add to what Rick said, that's true. When we got Sam on drums, that locked everything into place. And everything is very, like I said, it's very cut and dry in Reeking Aura. Ryan gives us the songs, or if someone else writes a song, it's there, like Rick did. And the other guy, every once in a while, maybe you adjust something as you go, but it's pretty much all there. These guys have been writing songs for the better part of 20, 30 years. So I trust them,
Terrell, do you want to add anything to that as far as how the songs changed when Sam came aboard?
Yeah, no, Sam added a lot of his style, and like everyone mentioned, there was definitely a bit of progression and locking into our current sound between the EP and the album, between Keith and Sam. I think even with myself, I think I was definitely a little more conservative on the first record, and even writing some of those harmonies. everything would be a little more safe, minor thirds. But with this one of the first songs we started writing, I tried to write almost like a counterpoint. So I definitely took more chances. And I think, once again, like all of our flares really kind of shined out more on this album.
So Terrell, it sounds like what you're saying is that the guitar performances became more individual on this album.
Yeah, I agree. I think at the beginning it was making sure we're nailing everything and keeping the train rolling. But now it's like, this is what I'm doing. This is what Rick is doing. This is what Ryan's doing. It's a little more distinct and a little more separate.